Then I will call the meeting to order at 6:05 and open it up to public comments. I see we have a couple people here. Did you guys want to bring anything to our attention, or were you just watching? Hi, James.
I'm just watching.
Yes. Welcome. Glad to have you. Lauren, did you want to bring something up, or were you just watching?
I'm here to talk about open meeting law with you folks.
Oh, okay, great. Sorry.
That's okay.
And then I see someone called just as call-in user. All right, well, hearing nothing. And we do have 1, 2, 3, 4. We do have a quorum, so I'm gonna request a motion to approve the minutes from our March 1st meeting. I hope everyone had a chance to read Janet's excellent minutes. Can I have a motion?
I'll move to approve the minutes from the
Thank
last
you.
meeting. Yeah.
And a second?
Second.
Thanks, Tova. All in favor, and I will do a roll call, and you say your name and approved or not. So I will start with Pat.
Patricia Purdy approved.
Jeremy.
Jeremy Gross approved.
Kevin.
Kevin DiNapoli approved.
Tova.
Tova Crystal approved.
And Janet. No, Janet. And I'll say Martha Brennan approved. Janet, are you there?
She's showing up, but
I know, she is. She might have walked away from her PC since she was running from another meeting. All right, well, we'll see. One abstention then. Okay, so Lauren, thank you for joining us tonight. Tom, did you want to introduce or?
certainly. Lauren Goldberg is the managing partner and also town counsel from KP Law. And she is here today to answer any questions or comments regarding confidentiality jurisdiction issues that you have requested. So I will turn it back to your chair, Martha, who may begin the discussion.
Right, thanks, Lauren. One of the things that we grappled with a little bit while we were setting up was confidentiality in terms of mandated reporting. And in the act of somebody reporting an incident to us and figuring out if it happened at school, what we do, if it's something that potentially should be referred to the police versus someone at town hall. And some examples that we were thinking about were something happens in a public accommodation way. Somebody goes in to a local business and is refused the use of a bathroom. This incident actually happened somewhere with a white child was able to use the bathroom with their black child was not able to use the bathroom. If they came to us, you know, what kind of obligations would we have for reporting? Certainly, if it's something that seemed criminal, we would report to the police if it's something on school grounds, but we do have people on our committee that are mandated reporters. So we just wanted to kind of have a sort of open discussion. And if other people have other scenarios that you are also worried about, the other scenario is, what if somebody at town hall as an employee brought something to our attention? Town hall doesn't have a formal HR department. So we just kind of wanted to make sure that we weren't doing anything that will ultimately get the town in trouble. So we'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Sure, thank you. And thank you for having me. I would say first that being thoughtful about what is and what is not a public record is the first place you need to start. Any person can bring a voluntary complaint forward and their name and identifying details can be withheld. So, you know, if we're talking about a town employee's issue, you know, if you got a public records request for that, I think we could protect that person's identity in withholding whatever we had that they had filed. But, you know, mandatory reporting to the police or mandatory reporting to the DA, I don't think you all are mandatory reporters. But I will say, I see on your form that it said, you know, this will be confidential. And maybe it will, and maybe it won't. You might want to put to the extent provided by law next to it.
Hey,
Um,
Lauren,
yeah.
I'm a licensed clinical psychologist, so I think I might be a mandated reporter. And that might supersede my position as a member of this body. I'm not sure about that exactly.
So I wouldn't know either. We can certainly look into it, but remember when you're acting as part of this committee, you don't have any individual rights to, decide something or do something based on your feelings and your beliefs. It's really the entire body that has to vote on how to handle something like that. So I'm going to guess that it's not, but at the same time, and again, I said I will look into it. I think it's important because you know what the steps are, you know what happens, and that's probably worth having a discussion about, and at least putting some information up that lets people know. And I think that's really where the issue is. You don't want to say it's confidential if you're going to make a referral. So if you say, confidential to the extent provided by law, please note, however, that let's just say that Sam is in fact a mandatory reporter in this capacity. We might say, be aware that things may require reporting, under whatever law. So I think that's something to be really cautious about. And I've actually given a talk to another Human Rights Commission relatively recently. And we really talked about how difficult it is for a Human Rights Commission to do the job that it wants to do in light of the public records and open meeting law. So, if you guys meet as a body, you have to post under the open meeting law, and you have to include as much information as would be needed to explain essentially to people what's going to happen at the meeting. So we're going to go into executive session to talk about, physical condition, reputation, personal issues under Exemption 1, you'd still need to post that, and you'd still need to take minutes afterward. And, we can argue that the exemption continues to apply and or that other public records law exemptions apply. But it's that dealing with individuals as a body that creates kind of the difficulty under the open meeting law.
One of the things that we did in the very beginning was sort of create a process by which we would handle reports. And I don't know if you got a chance to look at that on the website. We copied that from the Lexington Human Rights Commission. And one of the ways we mitigated against the open meeting law was to have a smaller group of people be assigned if we got a report that needed to be assessed. So I think that the language is, and Sam is the expert on this because he put it together for us, that the chair would create a committee of 3 people to assess the report. So in that situation, they wouldn't have to take minutes? That's our question.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think they would be a subcommittee for purposes of the open meeting law. They would need to post, they would need to take minutes, they would need to follow those requirements.
And what about, I'm sorry, I know, let other people jump in. Because we have a Town of Wenham email address, and those complaints could be coming in on the email address, would they be automatically subject to a public records request?
Any record made or received by any town employee, volunteer, elected official, appointed official, every single thing you make or receive there's a starting point of assuming that it's a public record subject to mandatory disclosure under the law. So if you want to, so being conscious of that, essentially the presumption is it's going to be public. And then if the town believes that because of certain things that the report says, or it would, expose a person in a way that they didn't want to, or whatever it might be, you would have the ability to assert a privacy exemption and an Exemption F, which is the exemption I was talking about. It relates to ongoing investigations, but it also protects names and identifying details of voluntary witnesses and complainants.
Okay.
So in one of the towns where they have a human rights commission, one of the things that they talked about was having one individual be in charge a month, to essentially address any intake, to respond to any concerns, to try to find resources that might be available. And that because it's just one person, if that one person were to ask someone else, you couldn't authorize them to act collectively. But let's just say they said, I really want to get the chair's feelings on this. They would be able to do that under the open meeting law without breaching it. But it's different if you say they're all going to be authorized to act collectively. As soon as you're authorizing a group to act collectively, even if it's less than a quorum, it's subject to the open meeting law.
Okay. Anybody else have questions about this? Do you want to jump in?
I have a question. It's probably just clarifying some of the things you've said, so I apologize to make you repeat yourself. But maybe if I could give an example just to try to understand. So like before we really even had a meeting, like we had somebody reach out about sexual harassment by a town employee. And it had already kind of come to light. So the confidentiality in that moment wasn't super, like, it wasn't really that much of a thing. Like the person had already kind of spoken out, but they also wanted to come to us. So if that happened again though, and this person wanted to report this without coming forward, do we have any way to protect them? If they report the complaint to us, do we have any way to not offer their name up?
Right. So I think we would assert those exemptions, right? We would assert exemption C, personnel records. Personal records. We would, there's two clauses in exemption C. The first is personnel records. And this would fall, if it was a town employee, it would fall into that category as well. And then exemption F, which basically encourages people to come forward, voluntary witnesses and complainants, with the kind of understanding that their names and identifying details won't become public. So it's anybody who writes anything to the town and or if you write anything down that's properly part of the record, you have to know it could wind up being disclosed. And so I kind of have that rule where I say, would I be okay reading this on a blog, or if this was posted on a hater's website, would I be okay with that? Or, a fan's website. And it causes me to be a little more formal in my correspondence. I won't say that I never, send a smiley face or, ask someone how their family is. But most of the time I'm thinking, hey, if they're going to forward this around, I want to make sure that I've said what I should say. So you should be thoughtful about that. Before you write down the person's name in a bunch of documents that the town controls, you might call it complainant A or something like that. It doesn't mean that the complainant isn't identifiable to you all, but it does provide some protection for the individual. And the other thing about using one person a month to kind of watch the email inbox and address any complaints that might come is that if there is an issue where, for example, the town itself is involved, that's really a conversation between maybe, one person and the chair and the town administrator, because those, the commission has no right to, investigate, take employment action. And so there has to be that working relationship between the town and the commission. You guys are on the same side as entities. And so those resources are going to be important. And also, I don't want to speak for the current interim town administrator, but he also is aware of the kinds of complaints that create liability, that create report, I'm going to say reportable incidents, not mandatory reported, but things that should be dealt with. So, you know, I really would, if that's the case, if you're doing more than, you know, suggesting to the town, and I'm not belittling any of the actual value of you guys making comments about what's important and what people should be focused on. But let's say that you had I don't know, an incident of racial discrimination, or someone alleges that. So, you know, you go to the town administrator, you have a talk about that, you kind of figure out where you are with that and whether you need to report it. But you don't have to tell the town administrator the first time you sit down what you're there, like who you're talking about. And you also want to know that, you know, that you will be supported on that human resources side of things, because when you have confidential information and you don't take good care of it, and I'm not suggesting that you would not take good care of it, but like you should be using a filing system, for example, that anything that comes in that you're going to treat as confidential is labeled as confidential, that material is maintained in a locked cabinet at town hall, that, you know, you don't carry someone's personal information with you when you leave the house, you know, other than to go directly to a meeting, and that you don't leave your computer around without a password. These are things that can create problems for the town as a whole, and can inadvertently, you know, bring someone's complaint to light.
What about that same example, but if it involved the police? And we do have Kevin as a representative from the Wenham Police. Just, you know, the same kind of thing. Somebody comes to us alleging racial discrimination, or, you know, getting pulled over because they were Black. I guess I want to sort of talk through what we do with that. Do we go directly to Kevin and just have a chat like you were saying we would do with the town administrator?
I would get the town administrator and go talk to the chief, because again, your investigatory authority is limited, and so you want it to be handled the right way. You want the chief, or you want the chief to do the investigation or refer it to the state police. That's you know, oftentimes what they do when it's an in-house potential issue. So that's where you start, I believe. You know, schedule a meeting with the interim TA and the chief of police and say, look, you know, we found this person credible. You know, we are concerned that this is actually going on. What are you going to do about it? How do you want to handle it? And so it gives you a place to talk about it from.
And then on the converse of that, we also discussed as a group, you know, that we want to be supportive to people who do the reporting, and either by providing resources or referrals or whatever. So how does that loop work back then? What is our obligation to go back to the person who complained and say, well, we met with the chief and he, you know, said this? Like, I imagine that would not be our role. And yet we would want to be supportive and let them know that what we did with the information, like just you saying that we're on the town side makes me a little uncomfortable, because we're kind of in this place where we're trying to represent not just the town, but visitors, employees, residents.
The town, all I meant by that is that the goal of being fair and applying the laws equally, that is something that the town also believes in and, you know, has as a priority, as do most of the local governments that I know. I don't know that there's a single answer to that. In some ways, it seems like the only way to kind of move things forward is to talk to them. And then to kind of, if you're going to report back, to say, we referred this to the chief and the town administrator. And then if they don't like that, they can go to the district attorney, or they can, you know, come out more publicly, and, or, you know, you guys can help them get connected with resources that, you know, are used to make those kinds of issues fair, you know, and to bring that out. But I do think that that it is a struggle. And my biggest comment to the other group that I was talking about was, it's where does your authority end? Well, you guys don't have authority to investigate. You have authority to make recommendations. You could say, look, we think we're missing all of this in our training programs. We'd like to have this in the school. You know, we want to have more awareness. We want to sponsor a few, you know, selectmen's meetings so we can come in and give a PSA at the beginning. You guys get to do all that. But town officials, the town government is going to be the entity that investigates. Now, it's frustrating, or it's potentially frustrating, because the thought is, well, are they actually going to? If, you know, if it's about them and we're telling them, then, you know, are they going to do what they're supposed to? For certain things, and this is why I was saying to talk to Tom, the town has to do an investigation and can't ignore it. And so, you know, that will come in. And finally, you know, you are talking to this person. I'm assuming that once this person emails or calls, that you guys are talking to them. Someone is, right? And so you have the ability to explain, look, here's what we can do. Here's where our jurisdiction ends. I can, you know, really push for more training. I can stream a video. Here's all the things I can do. But the action that I can take with respect to allegations against the town is to tell the people that are responsible for that. You know, and they decide the next steps.
Can we accompany the person complaining to a meeting with the police or with the town administrator, or with, if that's what they choose? I mean, do we have any, is there anything that would prevent us from doing that? If that's something that they wanted to have somebody be there to support them, if they wanted to go make a complaint?
I don't know the answer to that. You know, I think it also depends. Oftentimes a person will want someone to be with them, you know, and maybe that is the appropriate choice in certain circumstances. But I think that's really going to be something you have to look at on a case-by-case basis.
But there's nothing that precludes us from doing that, or is there? Like, if
There's nothing in state law that says that you can't be a part of or support for a person who's claiming to have been harmed, but that's not the same as saying, you know, you have the right to accompany that person. So again, I think it's more of a case by case, and looking at what resources are available. And, you know, the more towns that do this, and more towns are, the more information we're going to have, and we're going to be able to fine tune, you know, what the procedures are. But I read through your charge, and I mean, I thought it was really well done, because it kind of does draw that line, and it says, you know, here's what we can do. I think as long as you're forthcoming with people who are complaining about what your authority is, and what their options might be, then I think that's what you do. You know, someone may go to the DA. They don't have to come here to the town to report something. They can go to the DA if they want, and there's victim witness advocates at the DA's office who can be of assistance. So I think there are a lot of ways to kind of look at this. And each time, you know, if let's say you say to someone, look, I can report this to the police chief and the town administrator, but they're going to want to know, you know, who's making this complaint. Are you comfortable with that?
Mm-hmm.
That's, you know, that's different than just saying, and I told them who you were, you know? So I think, again, that's part of a discussion. And perhaps, especially because you're dealing with such personal information, you want to have like a checkoff sheet that you ask that person, you know, are you comfortable with the disclosure of your name directly to the town administrator or the police chief, as compared to just having a verbal conversation about it.
Like an informed consent, basically.
Yes, like an informed consent.
So I have a quick question about, so the email, like our committee's email is through a Gmail account that I created, and I gave Martha, our chair, like the password and all the information, but like it's currently signed in on my computer. Is that okay? Should it be done in a different form?
Well, a bottom line, and I never win friends or fans with this next line. So I want to tell you in advance, I did not write the law. And I'm not responsible for actually enforcing it. That's up to the DA and others. Under the public records law, I had told you earlier that every document made or received by a government entity is subject to the law and subject to mandatory disclosure. So anytime, whether you're using Google or, whatever, any other service, those emails, if they relate to your public business, are subject to disclosure unless one of the exemptions applies. So is it a problem that you have a Gmail account on your computer, like signed? I don't know, is your computer accessible by other people? Is it in the middle of a busy office? Would you be worried about, someone coming in and using it inappropriately, even if, for example, it was one of your, kids just playing with the computer? If the answers to any of those things are yes, then my recommendation is to assess the security issue. Figure out, is there a better way to protect that? And figure out a way so that you guys don't have to keep all those, because those emails, if they're copied to the town, you don't have to retain them. So it may be something that's worth talking about to get that correspondence on the town server. Sometimes we can do that by having an email address that you copy every time you guys email. And so it's automatically on the town servers and you don't need to worry. Did I print that out? Did I bring that in? Oh my gosh, I have 17 emails here that I didn't copy and print. So that's an option for you, is to think about that. And I know that the town has a lot of email. I don't know what the capacity is. If they don't have the capacity to give you an email address like that, then you really are talking about printing and bringing your emails into town hall for a meeting and
Well,
leaving
just
them at town hall.
Just to clarify that, we do have a town email address. What Tova is talking about is we also have a fillable form if people want to make their complaint through the form, as opposed to emailing us their complaint. And that's attached to a Wenham Human Rights Commission Gmail that I have access to, but is separate from the regular town email. So that email that's associated with that fillable form is not really used for email, just for those.
No, sorry about that.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to make sure that was clear how we were doing that, because we do have an email.
So again, I mean, that form, when you get it filled in, when it comes up in your Gmail, that form is subject to the public records law.
Mhm.
And so you do need to think, does the Google address give you a comfort level that it won't be hacked, it won't be stolen, that, you guys are limiting your references to actual individuals and just more generally talking about situations. And you need to figure out where you're going to put those things, because those are, as you guys have been discussing, it's highly likely, especially if they're only emailing, that they're uncomfortable about coming forward at that point. So you don't want to, by accident, create a situation where you guys don't handle personal records in a way that would be expected for a government entity.
Right. I think, Tova, we set it up, right, so that if the form gets filled out, it gets automatically forwarded, right, to the Wenham.
I don't think I did set that up.
I thought
because
when we did the test, we had an automatic forward. We can go look into that, so that
Okay,
any form that gets filled out gets automatically sent to our town email address, and then we would be covered under that, everything on the town server thing.
yeah, if that isn't the case, I can make it so.
Yeah, it's pretty easy, I think.
Okay, perfect.
Does anyone else on the committee have questions or concerns for Lauren? Sam, I know you did the most work on digging into the process flow. Are you comfortable?
I mean, I'm comfortable with some of the ambiguity here. I think, I think it sounds like the state still has to work out some of how human rights commissions operate and work. I'm a little anxious about the potential conflict between my mandated reporter status as a licensed clinician and membership on the committee. And so I might dig into that a little bit more on my
Yeah,
own.
that does seem to be like, and I know Tova's a mandated reporter and as well for her job. And so I guess I was trying to parse, Lauren, what you were saying, whether if your occupation puts you as a mandated reporter, like a teacher or a therapist, but your role here is as a committee member, does that mandated reporting obligation carry over in
Right.
your role?
And I don't have a definitive answer. I've
Okay.
never been asked that before, actually, and it's a good question. I think you're going to have to look at, or if Tom tells me to, then I will. But you look at the sections on mandatory reporting and see, and also for the two of you, also add any guidelines that your respective, registration or associations would provide on that.
Yeah, I can already predict our risk management lawyer is going to say you need to report everything as a mandated reporter to protect your license and your liability. But I'll see if I can dig a little deeper and see if there's some nuance or clear guidance.
Yeah, I think Sam, the big point here is that you as an individual have no authority. You only have authority if the group votes and delegates it to you.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're a member, you're not, I mean, you could have any profession, but you still wouldn't have any special rights at that table. That doesn't mean though, that the law, planned otherwise. So I think that's an important distinction though, if you're talking with anyone about it.
Yeah.
Martha, I am also a mandated reporter.
Right, I imagine Kevin is as well. So like half the committee is mandated. So yeah, I guess I've never thought about that, Sam. So if you're just at the grocery store and you see something happen, you would be required to report that if you saw child abuse or if it wasn't in your professional capacity?
The way I understand it currently is that if I have enough information, then my obligation is to report it, right? And then DCF has a whole, if it's a DCF issue, they have a whole process in place for following up on reports and managing it, right? But the mandated reporter obligations came into place because not enough people were even giving them the tip in the first place, right? So the underlying question, or obligation is if you have the information, you are supposed to start the process.
Okay.
I would also just suggest, and this may be something that you guys need to talk about, but those of you that are mandatory reporters, you could get one level of information, and then the different group could get a different level of information, so that they don't feel obligated to do a report. And it's something, I mean, on the other hand, you might want to do a report on everything, and that's certainly an issue. So Tom, do you think it's okay for me to take a look at the mandatory reporting language?
Absolutely, that's fine.
Okay. All right.
I think we're probably okay, because it really is supposed to be in your professional capacity, and so I think it's reasonable to assume that my professional capacity ended at 5:59 p.m. and doesn't continue into this. But I'll consult with our medical risk lawyer and we'll see where they come down to.
Great.
So Tom, I would really like it to be looked into, because in my capacity as an educator, I could see that I might feel uncomfortable about something because if it involves kids or whatever.
Okay, that's fine, Janet. Whatever Lauren comes up with is fine.
Great, thanks, Tom.
Thank
I
you.
think the risk is where there's fuzziness between your professional capacity and and the committee. Right? If there's a fuzzy boundary there, then it gets a little bit more difficult
Right.
to make sense of.
Right. So for example, Janet, would it be the contact with the schools
Right,
to just kind of make sure that there's some distance there?
exactly.
Okay. That was really helpful. Thank you. I think we'll definitely need to make some changes to what we say on the form to include that to the extent provided by law on the confidentiality thing. And if you have any other sentences you feel we should add.
I think it behooves us to do sort of to try and be as transparent as possible with folks about what to expect. And then we should probably, like, if a dyad gets assigned to a particular complaint, we should have like a little tick sheet that makes sure that we explain, you know, what to the best of our knowledge we're able to do and not able to do, and what happens to their information. I think that's probably going to be the best we can do for
Yeah.
folks.
Right. Lauren, did you say there was another town that had that sort of informed consent checklist, or was that just something you were imagining
No,
would be-
I was telling them that they should. I was
Okay.
saying that's really something to think about. And, you know, you could have it, if you ever have voted by provisional ballot, you'll know that you get your provisional ballot, and then you get some information about provisional ballots, and you leave with that information. And so maybe you guys can do like a 1-pager bulleted that just says, you know, this is what we can do. We can connect you with resources. We can, you know, talk to the town personnel that has authority over this, but we can't make independent investigations of the facts. And so if that is what you want, you know, we can help coordinate it, but then our job ends, at least with respect to that individual complaint. And I think having that bullet, you know, to hand out or to send back to someone, you could even do like an automatic response. We've received it, and, you know, here's your info, or something. But I think it's worth thinking about.
I think that's great. A great advice. Okay, so we'll have to take that, maybe draft something up to discuss for next month and getting it on as part of the process. We haven't actually gotten any complaints yet.
Okay.
That's good. We're not under the gun. We felt under the gun when we first started because we sort of started with a complaint before we had a process. So we had to insert an extra meeting just so that we had something to go on. So I feel like this was the last piece of the puzzle to kind of make sure that we weren't, you know, going to endanger the town or ourselves individually by handling it incorrectly. So we do definitely appreciate you taking time out
Of course.
to talk to us tonight.
Well, thank you for having me, and thank you for doing the work that you do. You know, I think it's the biggest surprise to people that don't work for governmental entities as part of their day jobs, the number of requirements and, you know, checks and balances that are in place to address these things. So you guys are running right up against it. It's kind of like a law school exam. And so issue spotting away. If I think of anything else, I'm happy to pass it on. And if you want to send me a copy of the form to take a quick look at, I'm happy to do that.
Great. Do you want to put your email in the chat and I'll do that? Thank you.
Yep, absolutely.
Anybody else? Any last questions for Lauren? So I'm sure she wants to get on with her night and we'll get back to our.
Go to my next meeting.
Yeah, right.
Okay. There you go.
Thanks so much.
Okay, thank you all. It's nice to see you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Night.
Bye-bye.
All right. So kind of dovetailing right off that is now that we have a plan in place and we can make these adjustments, we sort of have to get the word out. And we talked about this very briefly. I think we need to think more intentionally about how we let people know that we're here and what we offer. I didn't know if anyone had, you know, other than, you know, we have posted things, we have stuff on the town website, we have some stuff on local Facebook pages, but I don't know that that's kind of enough. I don't know if people have thoughts.
Do you have thoughts, Martha?
I
about
don't.
it?
I was hoping you guys had some thoughts.
I mean, I think I can agree with you that it doesn't seem like it's enough. But I don't know how to better get the word out. Whether it's, and where to try first and foremost to get the word out to, like, should we be posting in schools, for example, or, you know, like, where are the places that we want to make sure that everybody understands how to reach us and when to reach out to us? Maybe we could start there.
Yeah, I did have a thought. I lied. So recently, you know, when we had the shootings in Atlanta that affected the Asian American Pacific Islanders, and I was thinking, like, you know, the state made a statement and I reposted that in my personal capacity, but it made me think, like, is this something that we as the Human Rights Commission should weigh in on? Should we be checking in with citizens that we know that are in that demographic? How do we reach, you know, people that might be feeling unsafe, or, you know, are there things going on at school? Are kids being singled out? Like, I don't know if that's really our role, but we want to be there to say, if stuff's happening, we can help.
Well, I did notice that the Hamilton Wenham Human Rights Committee they have a great Facebook page and
They
they
do.
put things out. I almost feel as though it's covered in some ways there, with the exception of, I think people are confused because there's that, and then Hamilton has their own and we have our own. And I almost think it is, if there were some way to let the Hamilton Wenham Council be the umbrella and we're under it, I don't know, but I do think it's a lot. And I tend to, I mean, and they did have a very good posting about the Asian issue. So I don't know. Do
Right. I
we?
think where it's slightly different than the coalition. I think there's definitely overlap.
Yeah,
But I think, like, that ours is a more formal channel, if you will, because of
Yeah.
the,
yeah. I don't know. I mean, if we send things to the school, that should include Hamilton, not just Wenham.
right. Well, in fact, I think I'm going to include this as part of other business. Just before the meeting, I did check the email in case we did get something that came in before we talked. And the Hamilton Human Rights Commission, the formal municipal one, had their first meeting yesterday, and they did elect a liaison. So Jeremy, I just connected you via email with her, so that, you know, we talked about when we first met in January that we would, you know, work with them, or at least liaise with the Hamilton group. And, you know, they're just kind of getting rolling. So they might be able to benefit from some of the stuff that we've already done.
Yeah, I'll reach out this week.
But yeah, I do, Pat, I agree with you. There is some confusion about the coalition's role versus our role. And it came up specifically in relation to the questionnaire for candidates that they sent out. Because I got a couple emails asking why I was doing that, why I had sent out
Yeah.
a questionnaire and it wasn't my place. And I was like,
Yeah.
not me. But, you know, I think it's an educational process. But again, that's sort of like public relations or information that we could help sort of set what those boundaries are, you know, where we cooperate and where people would formally report. It doesn't, I mean, anybody could make a complaint to the coalition and they would probably say, you know, okay, where do you live? And then direct them to either us or our Hamilton counterparts. So I don't know. I think we need to do a little more thinking on that. And I don't know what our role will be at town meeting. I know that in the charge, it talks about us reporting to the selectmen sort of the results of our year. I don't know if we get the first year off of that. Yes, Tom.
I've not attended a Wenham town meeting, but in other town meetings, boards and committees can, through the moderator or generally through the moderator or the Board of Registrars, give a update of their board or committee to the meeting. I know one committee, the Government Structure Committee, has requested to do a quick report update, few-minute update for the upcoming town meeting. You could put a request in if you'd want to, at least to our chair. Right now, I just have the one board member until another week.
Right.
You could put a request in to Gary if you were interested in giving a short committee update.
Okay. And what about the annual report itself?
The annual report is interesting because the annual report is based on the
Previous
prior
year.
year. And
Oh, so
unfortunately, we're not in existence in
okay.
2020.
So we could,
You were a thought, but you weren't in existence
right.
at that point.
That might be worth, you know, getting 2 or 3 minutes at town meeting just to introduce the committee and the concept.
Yeah, I think as long as it's brief.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, definitely. I mean,
I'm
a lot of people might not know we exist, and
Yeah.
it was just, this is who we are. This is, you know, we exist, and this is the type of thing that we handle. People could come up to us after. You know, we can give out the information.
Right. We could even have a handout at town meeting, because I know, I'm pretty sure this spring, because it's going to be under a tent, they have a table where there are lots of people love to pick up things and read them while they're waiting for the meeting to begin. And that might be a good idea, because you're dealing only with Wenham residents.
Right.
And you know, sort of an informational flyer or whatever.
Just
And
like a one pager. Yeah.
yeah, with bullets about, you know, the and I noticed, because I do the election stuff at the town meetings, and people are always coming up and asking, looking for things to pick up and read. So that might be a really good place to start.
That's a good idea. That might even be better than speaking.
Well, no, I think the
Do
speaking
both.
is good too, because they would, you know, relate to one another. But the more I think about it, a handout might not be a bad
Yeah.
idea.
What day is town meeting?
It's the first.
May
Saturday
1st.
of May, yeah.
May- Yeah. Saturday.
Yeah.
1 o'clock.
I'm wondering too if we could do some outreach with like the First Church in Wenham, and I actually don't know if there's any other like religious congregations like in Wenham specifically, but like to see if they would be willing to let their congregation know that we're here. Could be a way. And then like, I don't know, like I know the Rotary Club, I didn't know if somebody,
Oh, that's
I think I've been meeting with them about something else, and they actually thought, they mentioned that they might be meeting with someone from our committee, but now I'm thinking maybe they confused us with the coalition.
Hmm.
And I'm wondering if maybe we want to say something to them about our existence.
I'm actually on Rotary and I am speaking next week.
Oh, okay. Sorry, Kevin.
So I can, no, that's okay. I can absolutely make that part of my presentation where I can tie it in.
Well, that'd be
Awesome.
good.
I think that's a great point. So sort of outreach to local civic organizations, whether that's a church or the Hamilton Wenham Mothers Club, for example, like anything
Mhm.
where, you know, so I think the first step would be kind of putting together this quick flyer that we could use as a way. So
The other organization in town, and again, I go back to it being just Wenham, because with churches and Rotary, you're dealing
Right.
with lots of different
Yep.
communities. But the Wish organization in town, and it's another social service agency. It might be important to even somehow communicate. I don't know who the chair of that committee is now, but it would be easy to find out.
Yeah.
You know, and they have a flyer that they put out with different support systems and agencies, and you know, we could be added to that. I think that would be something we could do, and it's Wenham specific.
Do you want to take that on to find out who?
Yeah, I can do
Would be
that.
great.
Yeah.
I was thinking the tea house too, is a,
Well,
Wenham.
they're not open right now. They're in a bit of a turmoil.
Oh,
They're scheduled tentatively to sometime in possibly June or July for
But
opening.
they're gonna do the camp this summer?
No,
No?
but think about it.
Tea
That's
house
more of a
camp?
retail, that's more of a retail situation. It's really, I mean, you can, but again, so many
Well-
people from out of town go there.
I was just thinking of tea house in terms of Wenham Village Improvement Society.
Oh, yeah,
That
yeah.
group would be someone,
yeah,
have a mailing list of people that we might want to hit.
yeah.
Okay, that's great.
Martha, can we back up to the schools for a minute? I think we really should start with sending something to the schools. Guidance people, principal, administrators, because they may be able to get information out to kids that
Yep.
have issues. Or the kids bring it home in their backpacks and the parents read it.
Well, and they
For the
themselves
younger
may be
kids.
aware of systematic or systemic
Janet?
issues that we should address.
Yes,
I'm sorry, Sam, I couldn't hear you.
Yeah, Sam, your volume's really low.
Huh. Let me figure that out.
A little better.
Test.
That's better.
Better.
Okay. All right, I got it reconfigured. Is that better now?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. I was just saying that people like guidance counselors and others who are hearing from multiple sources can also bring systemic issues to us. So they themselves might actually be people who want to use that resource to connect with us.
exactly my point. And it's local, it's right here. I think that's a great place to start.
Right, so what I'm hearing is we do a flyer, we make a list of local organizations we want to do outreach to, and perhaps we can, sort of split that up with the committee to do some personal outreach, because I think better than just doing an email blast, to have somebody actually reach out specifically to those people to tell them who we are and what we do would be great.
I'd be happy to do the schools, Martha, if you need someone to do that.
Okay, yeah. Well, let's, anybody want to take a stab at a one-page flyer? Or I can and send it around if no one's dying to do that. I see everyone looking away, so. I can read a room or read a Zoom.
Profiles
Being
encouraged.
sensitive to, sorry, Tom?
Profiles encouraged.
I know.
Martha, I can help you with it if you want to do it. If you want to get started, I'm happy to go back and forth with
Okay.
you.
That sounds good. Thank you, Janet. I'm sensitive to the time because I know last month we kind of went on for a while. So I had put this down. This was something that Pat had brought up, sort of doing some goal setting as a committee. I don't know if we want to put this off so we can have some, maybe introduce it at this meeting and then circle back next time. But Pat, maybe you can describe, you were talking about, what, since we are so new, like what do we as individual members of this committee think is our most important, or what are we hoping to accomplish? I'm not being as elegant as you were when you described it to me.
I was.
Yeah, you were, but I distilled it down to goal setting.
Oh,
Ruined it.
oh gosh, Martha, I'm caught off.
No, Pat, here's the problem. You say something brilliant. I've done this before. And then one of my students says, wait, that's great. Can you repeat that? And I have no clue what I just said. Like no clue.
Well, I can say that we could, I feel like we did some good stuff tonight.
Yeah.
We knocked out the confidentiality thing and we have a couple of follow-ups for that. So that's a goal we can set. And then this outreach and flyer is another goal. So we can kind of have that as our sort of short-term goals if everybody's okay with that. Jeremy has a goal. He's going to liaise with his counterpart in Hamilton. And then I did throw on this other business because I took the open meeting law training and found out that you can get around that agenda thing by always having an other business, which is anything that you didn't know about at the time you posted your agenda.
Martha recommended, never say the word how to get around. Very good.
Yeah,
They
yeah,
said
yeah.
it in the training. No, I'm gonna stay with that. They said it in the training. This is a catch-all so that if something came up at the last minute,
Yeah,
you didn't reasonably know,
Right.
then you can have it. So one of the things that we talked about last month and that Tova actually did some work on was the anti-bias training. And I think what we determined was that we need to wait until we have more than one selectman to have that conversation.
Correct.
Tova, did you want to add to anything to that or?
The only thing I would say is that I did reach out. I heard back from Lexington because they obviously are established in this, and they are in a similar position of like they were moving forward with it and then held back because of concerns of like illegitimacy and stuff. And then they're kind of waiting they're having an internal review and then they're going to go forward. And I just suggested that we'd love to be in contact with them, sharing ideas with this as we go forward.
Okay. All right, does anyone else have any business that they weren't reasonably expected to know about last Thursday at noon when I sent the agenda in? All right, then,
Well, wait, I have a comment.
okay,
I read in
Good.
today's Salem News that Kevin will be definitely our new chief.
yeah.
That's very exciting. Congrats,
when's the
Kevin.
big day, Kevin? When,
May 1st, I get to start it off at town meeting. Very exciting.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
that's
Sorry,
great.
totally unrelated to anything, but it was pretty
No,
exciting.
good point, Janet. Good point.
Thanks.
Well, we are honored to have you on our committee, Kevin.
Thank you very much. Honored to be a part of it. I think it's a good collaboration.
Yeah, and I hope that we put all these processes in place and that, you know, that they lead to some good outcomes when and
think
if
it will.
something comes up.
I think we're making some really good strides just in the few months. It's opening up my eyes to a lot of things. And, you know, my son who's 16 and he's so broad thinking that I bring a lot of these type things that we discuss to him and he he has been schooling me left and right. But it's good. It really is good.
You know what, Kevin, that is good. I do that with my kids too. Just another quick aside, and I won't hold you up a lot, but I'm sure you all read about that person in Hamilton that went to a, quote, he said, bread store, and someone said, go back to China. That was such a horrifying thing a couple of weeks ago on the Hamilton Wenham page.
No, I didn't do that.
I think it was in Hamilton, but just, you know, it's not just in the cities. It's hard.
Yeah, I anticipate that kids are getting those comments in the schools. I
Right.
can't imagine that.
I'm sure they are, honestly.
I know that some people like to think that this is an ideal world, but it's not. So,
No.
sure. That's great, Kevin. I have that experience with my two daughters too. I get brought up to task a lot, but I think one of the things that we all, you know, as part of this whole racial reckoning is that it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to be uncomfortable, get used to it.
Mhm.
We need to be uncomfortable and to have these important conversations. And, you know, you're going to make mistakes. You got to fix them and move on. So I'm trying to live that philosophy, but it's hard.
Yes, it is.
All right. So I will entertain a motion to adjourn unless anyone has any other comments or concern.
Martha, for scheduling purposes, we're still the first Monday of every month. Thank you. I
Yep.
just want to make sure.
And is 6 o'clock good for people?
Yeah.
Okay. I know it kind of means that you just end up doing 2 Zooms that night instead of 1. But we'll try to keep it to an hour unless we've got something really meaty to go to. So I appreciate everybody showing up tonight. Oh, a motion to adjourn. I need someone to make that motion.
So
I'll
moved.
motion to adjourn. Oh,
A
sorry, Sam.
second?
Second.
I'll second.
All right, I'll do a roll call. Pat?
I move to adjourn.
No, you have to, we've already moved. You know,
Oh, what do I do now?
you say Pat Purdy, yes.
Oh, that's right. Pat Purdy approved. Sorry.
Jeremy,
Jeremy Gross, approved.
Kevin,
Kevin DiNapoli approved.
Tova,
Tova Crystal approved.
Sam? Sam was on mute, but I could read his
We
lips.
saw his
No,
mouth
I'm
move.
not on mute. Wow. Are you not hearing me?
Yeah,
Now we
hard to
did.
hear tonight, Sam.
Oh, this is
Yeah.
the worst. All right, I gotta fix this. All right, I'm an I. Sam
And-
Nordberg, I.
Janet
And Janet Bird approved.
and Martha Brennan, aye. So that's unanimous. And Janet, I'll send you the agenda for the minutes.
Okay, great. Thank
Okay.
you.
All right. Good night,
Good
all.
night, everybody.
Good night, guys.
Thank
Bye.
you.